Welcome, dear students, to our week on climate activism. We were discussing various impacts on the youth, and that leads them or that puts pressure on them to take up climate activism. So, when we discuss the issues of the activism, we take up examples, we'll find that a lot of youth are involved in this climate activism. And later on, we will be discussing the Chipko movement also. There also the youth were involved. So, the youth is a very precious resource for the world, and they are the ones who take responsibility for the future, who look forward to the future, and that's why nurturing them, supporting them, helping them is very important. So, whereas young people can be active, older generations may not be active on the forefronts, but they can share their wisdom and experience with young people. Young people cannot deal with climate threats in isolation. So far, all the movements that we've studied, or the examples that we'll consider about climate activism by various young people around the world, we will find that it's a collective effort. All of them uh, have managed to form groups. So even if a single person has an idea of how to work for some issue related to climate, then that person forms a kind of platform or a kind of group. So this example is everywhere, and still in countries like India, things like counseling and support for young people is quite poor, and there is a rising tide of suicides because young people are under so much of pressure to perform well in their studies, and various other social issues which come in the category of marriage, etc. So, climate change is such a vast and such a complex and complicated issue that there are so many strands, and these are the social and the family strands that the young people need to be supported, need to be advised, need to be provided with role models on who will give them hope and tell them that constructive hope is there, that against all odds, if one decides to work, one can work out solutions to problems. So this is exactly the thing said by Arnines, that the weather or climate or nature, life, it's all one life, and it is all interconnected, and there is no definiteness about anything. There is just a flow, and it's indefinite. You don't know what's going to happen the next moment. So life is like that. Human life has its ups and downs. So this kind of wisdom that Arne provides in one of his last works is something that is very valuable for young people, and this we call intergenerational collaboration and support. So support, encouragement, and sensitivity from adults are basic to climate activism by youth. So we have young people who are climate activists here also. uh, there are climate activists all around the world, but one can imagine the situation if a person wants to remedy a situation in his or her environment where they say that the trees are being cut down, or there is no greenery around the place, and they want to take up action. So then they must get support from their parents and family and elders to continue with this good work. So that support is very important. And so here comes this emotional side of the climate impacts, that one cannot suffer the emotional impacts in isolation. One needs solidarity, one needs support, one needs somebody to give confidence and hope. So in this way, role models can help a lot. But unfortunately, when we see turn to our film world, uh, there are some very prominent actors, very prominent celebrities in the film world, who appear in advertisements, and they impress the youth with what brand of cigarette should be smoked, or what tobacco, or what pan masala, or what this kind of soda or cold drink should be taken. So, if such people who are in such a public eye and who are so popular with young people, if they took up their responsibility seriously, they could be excellent role models for young people. And surely some of the climate stress could be reduced, and the young people could see some direction, in all the confusion and the complications and the predictions of climate events. They could see some hope in the future. So, but unfortunately, it's capitalism, it's money accumulation that seems to rule everywhere. And many of these celebrities from the film world choose to endorse products that damage the environment or damage the health of people. And they are being paid big money for it. So the ethical considerations are not there. So these things are worth thinking about. If we think about India, and we look at how advertisement and media is there, so a real difference could be made in trying to uh, have role models for young people, so that they could find a light and a hope. We already know about the numerous suicides and the extreme depression, and climate change, along with social pressures, makes things worse. So it needs sensitivity, it needs encouragement, it needs understanding and support. That is what we called intergenerational collaboration. They need a healthy communication and rapport, and an open mind towards constructive solutions. So, here I think what we studied in our lessons related to the ideas of Arniness, I think they work very well. He talks about keeping an open mind, and that's exactly what is needed. He differentiates between uh, active and a passive mind. So, what is needed is an active mind, which involves in itself emotionally with others. That kind of mind which is open to possibilities. He speaks about possibilism also. So, is open to possibilities, is open to take up challenges and find alternative ways of dealing with survival issues. So the most important thing is they must be able to uh, communicate, they must have somebody to communicate with, and they must, from an early stage, from kindergarten stage, children need to have an encouragement towards an open mind towards the environment, towards the issues related to environment, and to be able to look at the multiple sides of an issue and try to find a resolution. So this is the need for the youth of today, if they are going to be climate activists. And as I just said, they need the right role models to steer them towards looking at climate change as a challenge rather than as a divine, irreversible course. So in a country which is ruled by traditions and often superstitions, um, the youth have to be educated about the scientific side of climate impacts. For example, I remember from my school days, I remember the old wives' tales related to eclipses. Um, as if, eclipse was a kind of a curse, and various health problems were related to it, and things like that. So, uh, they should know the science of climate, and this should begin very early in their lives, and they need the right role models. If they don't have the right role models, then they are in a confused state. So in order to make their minds active, in order to get them actively engaged in reverting climate change, they need to develop the idea of possibility, the idea of positivity, and to understand that there are no fixed definitions for life. Life is unpredictable, and they must learn to cope with life in that manner, learn to find solutions for the problems of life. So, the right role models would support them to make the right choices as climate activists, and they would, instead of having emotional outbursts, they would act in a constructive manner with the help of planning and counseling. So, somehow, this reminds me of this novel, The Rapture, which we discussed earlier, which talked about Bethany Krall, this girl who was supposed to be insane, and who had been accused of murdering her mother in a fit of insanity. She does not communicate in a normal way with people. She becomes very abusive, she becomes very violent. So, as I did mention earlier, whenever a doctor visits her, there's always a guard along with the doctor, because she can be absolutely wild and savage at any time. But the protagonist in this novel, uh, the lady, the main lady in this novel, who takes up this job, who is on a wheelchair and has not many options now in her career. So she is sent to the center where Bethany is kept. So in the beginning, it's a very inimical relationship, and Bethany abuses her and even attacks her at some time. But gradually, that enmity and that hate and that violence, it recedes into the background, and they develop a relationship of mutual dependence. So this is a demonstration, or this is an example that is given of young people who cannot be understood, and it's love, understanding, and caring can set them on the right direction, and can develop the positive sides of their personality. So, why do we need an open mind towards climate change impacts? Because it affects different people, different parts of the world in a non-uniform manner. Everybody suffers in a different way, and so if we keep ourselves, for example, we see what is happening in India, and we just stay limited within the experience of Indian culture, Indian tradition, and how we have suffered from climate change, and refuse to see another point of view of somebody else who belongs to another culture, another country, or another race, and who is also suffering from climate impacts. So we will not develop this fine kind of mind, we will not develop the fine tuned personality that has understanding and empathy, and that is required for the mindset and for the attitude that will help us move forward in reversing climate change, in somehow undoing the damage to the environment. So, without this mindset, it is difficult to change what is happening in the world. And as I just said, that the media, the film celebrities, and even the political leaders, especially if they are very popular with young people, they have it in their power to influence young people and put them in the right path. So, this becomes a responsibility of people in the older age group, or people who are celebrities, to uh, give direction to the youth and show them right way to live a good life, a healthy life. And so that is really lacking today in our country. It's very difficult to find um, leaders who would focus on showing young people the right path, and especially the right path or the right decisions related to climate impacts. Even if there is some leadership that influences young people, it does not exactly talk about climate. There might be uh, issues related to jobs or other social issues that are creating problems for young people, but climate impacts by and far are not touched, and they are very important. I mean, this is a very serious concern, because everything we do, all our life, all our breath, it depends on the climate. Without it, we cease to exist. A slight disbalance, the way in the ocean, the way it happens in the ocean, a disbalance of temperature destroys certain species, makes species extinct. It's the same thing for human beings. Changes in temperature or changes in the air quality, or the availability of oxygen, it wreaks havoc for humans. So, this climate change impacts are unevenly distributed, and the young people need to be given respect and understanding accordingly for whatever their background and whatever their culture is. So, one needs to broaden one's vision in different dimensions and perspectives, and especially those related to climate justice. So, this means trying to understand the disparity of impacts around the globe, and to understand there are some populations that are more vulnerable than the others. Um, in the Western world, the extreme effects of climate change might hit, but still there is money, and they are tools, and there is help to deal with those issues. Um, but in India, it is not so. So, understanding that there's a disparity of impacts, and also uh, how those impacts affect people because of disparity of economic status. So, that is also there. So, one needs to have an open mind that is willing to look deep into the issues of climate change, and not be narrow minded enough to only think in a very rigid, mm, closed manner. So, climate activism around the world, as we will see when we discuss some young climate activists, they are all concerned with different impacts of climate change in their own countries. And that's why the features of climate activism are different. What the work that they do is different in different countries. At some place, it may be about the loss of biodiversity, the loss of certain animal life. uh, for example, in Australia, there were forest fires, so there was an urgency to rescue abandoned and helpless animals like the koalas. So people were trying to help them. So it could be an issue about animals, or it could be the issue about trees, or about drought, about rivers drying up, or about the ice melting. It could be anything depending on the geographical region, but the common ground everywhere is collaboration and hope. So one cannot move forward without collaboration and without hope. When one feels that there must be a way out, that something can be done, however small, then only. So, there is a writer, Richa Sharma. She has written this paper, Learning to Recycle Isn't Enough. And she presents the case of climate activism in UK, and she feels that climate activism is important for the identity of young people. They need to address the issues that are threatening them. They need to address climate issues, and it is important for their identity. That is what she says. Let us see more of the points in her paper. She says that young people can make great contributions in educational research and practice. So, young people can do a lot um, as far as studies in climate impacts are concerned. They can help in educational research and practice, and they can do a lot in data collection and in reporting events, in recording events. Many young people are very uh, well equipped with knowledge of using computers and associated um, packages. So they can make great contributions in educational research and practice. This reminds me of this Chipko movement, where the young people were involved, and these young people were not lettered at all. These were villagers, but they knew things about climate. They observed things. They had knowledge out of experience. So the young people can make great contributions to educational research and practice, because especially at the level of villages, they have tremendous uh, first hand experience. They are the Alaknanda and the Bhagirathi rivers in Uttarakhand, and these places have faced a lot of deforestation. So, when there were floods in around 1970, which were life threatening, a lot of cattle were lost, lives were lost. So, this was a heavy climate calamity. They observed phenomena and they came to the conclusion that this commercial felling of trees, this uh, cutting down forest, this was responsible for this traumatic event, this extreme climate event of the flooding of these rivers. So, even at school level, young people experience the commodification of education, that it's packaged in a certain way, because the packaging will prepare a student in a certain way to join the market, or uh, you know to join the capitalist setup in some way as a laborer. So for these people also, we are talking about the students in cities where there are schools and private schools. They have this packaged, streamlined education, and for these people too, they in the forest, they have to be very clear headed about the thing that the forest needs to be saved. The forest needs to be saved, and they understand that commercialization is their enemy. So, climate education is important, and as far as village youth are concerned, they are already well versed in the first hand knowledge of their terrain and their environment. And when we come to urban settings, education is a package deal, and climate education does not hold any relevance there. And it is just something very unimportant, and just uh, confined to subjects maybe like geography or things like that, but it's not of much significance. And when we study this course on climate change and literature, it should be an eye opener at to that this topic is extremely important, and this must be introduced into education at an early level, so that children may have healthy habits. They may know how to deal with climate threats, how to cope, and also how to prepare for a cleaner and a better world. So far we have been discussing climate education and the impacts of climate on youth, how they are uniquely equipped to deal and to uh, deal with climate activism. So we can stop here, um, and continue in the next lesson. I hope I was able to convey the importance of climate education for youth today. Thank you.